we will... God damn it. Hang on. I have to take the cat's squeaky toy away. He just found it.
Rip.
Hello and welcome back to another Deck Tech by the Lab Maniacs. It's been a minute since we did a Deck Tech, right, Sigi?
Yeah, you can definitely say that. How long has it been? Like a couple of months?
A season? I don't think we've done a single one this season, have we?
Oh yeah, right. The last one was like in between seasons, right? With Lime Blue.
Yeah. Yeah. So as you can tell, this week I am joined by Sigi. He's over there, looking like Sigi, as you all know.
Yeah, that I am. There's also a fly in my room and it's bothering me.
Perfect. Sigi tends to come with a certain expectation of decks, and this week we are absolutely meeting and blowing away those expectations because we are going to do a deck tech on arguably the best deck in the format, if such a thing can actually be said to exist. So, Sigi, would you like to introduce this deck?
Yes. The deck we are going to be talking about today is Thrasios and Tymna Breakfast Hulk. And what a deck it is. So if you like going fast, like not fast car fast, not Sonic the Hedgehog fast, not space shuttle fast, but like light, speed of light fast. That's the kind of fast we're talking about here. I've recently recompleted 100 goldfish runs on this deck, and the average came out to turn 2.81.
That is absurd. For reference, when people first started doing, like, sharing these 100 goldfish runs and stuff like that, I think it was Clay Puppington who ran it on Grenzo Doomsday, boasting like a 3.08, 3.06 goldfish.
I think he got it down to like 3.10 in the end. He started out at like 3.3, and then he kept putting in mono black cEDH cards just to get faster. And he ended up at basically the exact same speed as mono black cEDH.
Yeah, so the fastest decks in the format are goldfishing around 3.1 as their kill turn. Breakfast Hulk goldfishes nearly a full third of a turn faster, which means that, every 3 games, it's approximately killing you on turn 2 once more than on turn 3. And it's like almost always killing you by turn 3, which is just absurd.
Yeah, the the turn 3 kill consistency in this deck is incredibly high. Like, one thing I did for my goldfish runs was to also look at what it looks like when I remove the most extreme outliers. And I had 1 turn 5 in those goldfishes of a hand that I honestly shouldn't have kept, and 2 turn 4s, and then 2 turn 1s and 1 turn 2 as my biggest 6 outliers.
That was it?
Yeah.
You had 1 turn 5?
Yeah.
Over 100 games, you had 1 game that went past 4 turns.
Yes.
That's incredible. Man. Okay. Let's delve a little bit deeper into this deck so you can see exactly why it is so disgustingly fast. As you all know, there's a little bit of a structure that we follow for these, and let's jump right into it. Sigi, please tell us a bit about your commander.
My commanders for this deck are Thrasios and Tymna. These two together have basically become an absolute mainstay in competitive EDH, boasting probably around like somewhere between 5 and 10 distinct strategies between them alone.
Yep.
They just do it all, let's be honest. Like, both can draw cards. One is an infinite mana outlet, the other one is an insane card advantage engine. And both of them come in the command zone. Like, what more
At
could
3
you want?
CMC or less.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
Why not? And I mean, they just give you the best colors in the format, basically. You get bug colors, and then you get +1. And white does actually have a couple of cards that support combo quite well. Or
like
to be more
Eidolon of
precise,
Rhetoric and Rule of Law, I think. Something like that.
Yeah. I was thinking more along the lines of Angel's Grace and Silence, but yeah, those two work as well.
Potato, potato.
Indeed. What else is there to say about Thrasios and Tymna? They are just...
Well, how about this? Does your deck actively play with Thrasios and or Tymna?
Not if I don't absolutely have to. So, Thrasios is only really used for my, like, win conditions D through F or something like that. Tymna is only really used when I've either kept a really bad hand that I probably should have mulliganed, or I've tried to go off and I've been stopped and I need to rebuild.
Like, maybe, say, someone Fairy Macabres you on a Moldafor.
Yeah. Like, just like that.
It happens. You mentioned Thrasios comes up and your wins D through F. How do you usually win?
Okay. This deck has two primary wins, and that's either Hermit Druid or Flash and Protean Hawk. Now, both of these combos in this deck are used to mill your entire library. Hermit Druid does so by us not having any basic lands in this deck, and Flash plus Protean Hulk does so by getting Cephalid Illusionist and Nomad's Encore, the two of which together make the Legacy Cephalid Breakfast combo. Along with those two, you usually get Grand Abolisher to protect yourself while going off, and Hapless Researcher, which you will use later in the combo to reanimate Laboratory Maniac via Dread Return. You do the same thing for the Hermit Druid win as well.
That is... Actually, it's not terribly surprising. Hermit Druid's the backbone of a lot of really powerful decks, because put your deck in your graveyard generally implies also you win in terms of eternal formats, just because of the raw card pool and Dread Return being an absolutely absurd Magic card. That probably shouldn't have seen print.
It's kinda crazy good, yeah.
It's awesome. Do you have any outs if things aren't going your way?
That really depends on where along the line I'm stopped. If I'm stopped before going off, say somebody counters like my Hermit Druid or my Flash, that's totally okay. I can cast Tymna and start to grind for a bit until I'm ready to go off again, either by like regrowthing one of my win conditions that's already been used up, or by going for an entirely different one. If I'm stopped somewhere along the combo, let's say before trying to Dread Return Laboratory Maniac, after binning my whole library, things get a little more complicated. The reason why I run Memory's Journey in this deck is for these exact situations. Memory's Journey lets me shuffle up to 3 cards back into my library, which I can use to basically not die when I've failed to go off. So, and Memory's Journey is actually a really interesting card because you can do things in two different ways. You can either uh, put your remaining win conditions in your Memory's Journey pile and try to go off ASAP after that, or you could put Time Twister in your Memory's Journey pile and try to play the long game. Basically, make it so nothing happened.
That must be a little sad to have to do that. Get that Hermit Druid all set up on turn 1, bin your deck on turn 2, and then on turn 3, Time Twister 90 cards back in.
Yeah, it doesn't feel particularly great, but it hasn't really happened to me much. I think I've had to do it like once so far.
Well, that's not bad. How do you usually navigate yourself to your win conditions you mentioned?
By aggressively mulliganing 4 tutors in my opening hand. If I see 1 tutor, I'm already happy, basically.
Yeah, Hermit Druid is a 1-card combo, so
Indeed.
you only need the 1 tutor.
Yeah, and that's kind of really almost all there is to it. Not really,
Mulligan
but...
for a tutor.
Like, if you just do that, if you try to make sure you find your tutors as early as possible, ideally in your opening hand, of course, you'll probably do okay on Breakfast Talk. However,
makes sense.
You can, of course, go a bit deeper. Like, if you just have a tutor in your hand and no interaction against a table full of blue decks, then you're probably going to have a bit of a hard time, because you're just going to get blown out. This means that you kind of have to do what you should be doing anyways for most cEDH decks, TBH, which is deciding on keeping your opening hand depending on which decks you're playing against. That being said, it's a bit easier for Breakfast Talk because of your raw speed. Like, you can always expect to be the fastest deck at the table.
Sorry, I was drinking a chocolate smoothie. Makes sense.
That's nice.
It is nice to be able to always know your role, which is kill you all before you do anything. With a lot of the more what we used to call adaptive combo style, which I guess we now call mid-range combo? Is that what we're gearing up to call them?
I have I have no idea.
And you're the one who's writing this. Anyways, the style of deck that I like to build and Luke just loves to play, it's a whole lot harder to be able to tell your table roll because it depends on the opening hand you keep as well as the turn 1 and 2 plays of your opponents. But how you mulligan is based on your roll at the table. So you have to kind of like know the future to be able to mulligan properly. It's complicated. So it's got to be nice to just be able to turn your brain off and be like, have tutor, have counterspell, win. And then just win. What do you do to protect yourselves from other decks? You mentioned counterspells. How else do you interact with opposing strategies and stuff like that?
It's basically mainly interaction on the stack. Most of the interactive cards I play are at CMC 1 or CMC 0 in the case of Pact of Negation. For that exact purpose, both of my combos in this deck are really cheap. Like, you need 3 mana total to go off with Hermit Druid, and you need 2 mana to go off with Flash Hulk. That's obviously part of what makes them so good and fast. And you don't want to hinder yourself by having to spend 2 or 3 extra mana just so you can get your combo through.
So you're saying you wouldn't run Dismiss?
What is Dismiss even?
Don't even worry about it. Never mind. That answers that question.
Kind of does, doesn't it?
We've kind of covered this next question, but just so that you can say it outright. What does your deck do better than other similar decks?
Go fast. Really fast.
Yeah, I guess if similar decks is defined as fast-focused combo decks, and this is the fastest focused comp, fastest deck, then you're faster than the fastest other decks. So you're fast.
That was a lot of fast, yeah.
Well, so's the deck.
Indeed.
Now, the question that a lot of people have been dying to have an answer to. What weaknesses does your deck have?
The biggest weakness is obviously Graveyard Hate. If there's a Rest in Peace or a Leyline of the Void against me in play, I feel kind of bad. Another issue is stuff like Linvala or Cursed Totem, things that shut off activated abilities of creatures, both because a lot of my mana acceleration comes in the form of mana dorks, and both of my main win conditions and my backup win condition all rely on activated creature abilities.
I can't imagine Linvala is much of a relevant factor in the first 2 or 3 turns, but I guess she comes up in long games?
Yeah, basically.
Makes sense.
2 and double white, as you said, is probably not something my opponents are gonna have on turn 2.
And if they do, they should be reconsidering their deck choice. Because that's a lot of white mana to have on turn 2. It's not that good a color. So Graveyard Hate, as would make sense from a graveyard deck, and activated abilities of creatures.
Yeah, let me think if there's something else. I guess Null Rod stops my backup win, which, by the way, in case I haven't mentioned it yet, is Bomberman into Twister Loops.
Would you like to elaborate on Bomberman into Twister Loops for our less enfranchised viewers?
Sure, yeah. So it's Aurochs Salvagers plus Lion's Eye Diamond, which you can use to make infinite mana, because Lion's Eye Diamond, when you crack it, gives you 3 mana of any color. Aurochs Salvagers can be activated for 1 and a white to return an artifact with CMC 1 or less from your graveyard to your hand. So you return your Lion's Eye Diamond, replay it, crack it again, make another 3 white. You do that until you've got infinite white. Then you can start filtering your colors into whatever you may need. And then we start the Twister Loop side of things, which is a whole different beast.
Maybe we don't cover that, and we'll just bottle it up with saying it is a way to recursively cast every spell in your deck as many times as you want, provided you have 2 sources of getting back cards. One that gets back cards from your graveyard into your deck, and one that gets back a card from your graveyard into your hand. You can do things like Memory's Journey and Regrowth. You can do things like Time Twister and Noxious Revival. And you can also do this with cards like Seasons Past and Tutors. All of them work together and let you cast spells as much as you want, which is how you win with nonsense like Swan Song. Because you cast a Swan Song and then you get it back and then you Swan Song the other thing again and then you end up building up an army of swans and blah, 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 blah. It's very complicated. And you'll be seeing more about that later in an article I'm posting at some point somewhere. Don't worry about it. So, at this point, it is customary for us to take a short break from this active recording so that Sigi can draw 3 random hands and we can talk about them. Hands from his deck, not pictures. He's not an artist. So we will see you in a couple of instants because of the magic of Cameron. Now there's a dog. She's a little bit scared because it started thundering, so I decided to let her spend the rest of the recording on my lap, assuming she wants to. Isn't that right, Bixley? Isn't that right? Yes. Anyways, so Sigi has drawn 3 hands, and he is going to walk us through any mulligan decisions, or if those hands just win, which is a very, very relevant factor for this deck, how he would go about doing it. Sigi, proceed.
Okay. The first hand I drew is Forbidden Orchard, Windswept Heath, City of Brass, Savannah, Chrome Mox, Demonic Tutor, and Diabolic Intent. Now, this hand is probably a keeper against a less interactive table. The reason for that is because we can go turn 1, let's say Forbidden Orchard, Chrome Mox, Imprint, Diabolic Intent, cast Demonic Tutor, find Hermit Druid. Turn 2, cast Hermit Druid. Turn 3, go off and win.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. It's decent. About average for this deck. Maybe a bit too many lands.
So a turn 3 kill is a little suboptimal for hands.
I mean, like, as I said, I'd take it against like a less interactive table, because if there's a bunch of blue players around, I'd probably want some way of protecting my Hermit Druid. That's the one awkward part about Hermit Druid kills, that he just kind of like sits there for a turn cycle.
Yeah, it is telegraphed.
Yep. But sometimes there's just nothing they can do.
It's true. We even watched Tenrose do that in the first round of the cEDH tournament. Played a Hermit Druid, everyone was just kind of like, hey, do you have something? I don't know, do you have something? Oh, I guess we're dead. And then everyone died.
The difference was, though, that in that instance, 2 people had something they could do about it.
I'll never get over that game. Let's move on
Same.
so we don't make enemies.
I think it's too late for that. But yeah. Hand number 2. We've got Godless Shrine, Marsh Flats, Lotus Petal, Chain of Vapor, Elves of Deep Shadow, Grand Abolisher, Protean Hulk. Oh boy.
Man, that doesn't do anything.
Yeah, that is definitely a mulligan. Well, we do have like a Dork on turn 1 and a Lotus Petal, which is nice. We've got our protection piece of the Hulk combo stuck in our hand. We don't have a tutor
Hulk.
to find anything.
Uh,
You know,
yeah.
there is a chance I'd actually keep this hand against a really slow and grindy table. Like 2+ Hate Bear decks.
How
The
come?
reason... the reason for that is because I've got some ways to make a solid amount of mana early. I've got something that I can use to remove a hate piece later in the form of Chain of Vapor, and I've got one of my 2 combo pieces. So I can get out Tymna reasonably early, start grinding a bit, and the instant I find a tutor, I can go find Flash. I can like deploy Grand Abolisher the turn before I try to go off or something, and then I do Flash Hulk later.
That is interesting. That's definitely a weaker hand, but it's neat that there might be scenarios in which you would want to keep that.
Yeah. Certainly interesting. Against like faster decks or adaptive combo decks, or however we're gonna end up calling them, this hand is an immediate mulligan. Like, don't even think twice. This has to go.
Interesting.
Fucking fly. Stop bothering me. Jesus.
How about your third hand?
Oh boy. I've got a good one there. Tropical Island, Verdant Catacombs, Lotus Petal, Mystical Tutor, Flusterstorm, Flash, Vampiric Tutor. So, the way this hand plays out is a turn 2 win with Flusterstorm protection. We go turn 1, Verdant Catacombs, find Underground Sea, cast Vampiric Tutor at the end of our opponent's turn, find Protean Hulk with that, draw Protean Hulk turn 2, play Lotus Petal, play Tropical Island, spend 2 mana on Flash, Protean Hulk, and if somebody tries to interact, we've got Flusterstorm backup on turn 2.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
I don't
would keep
think
that
there's a
hand.
situation, where I wouldn't keep that.
A turn 2 kill with protection. Yeah, you'd have to be... I don't know. Nope. That's a good hand. That's a very good hand.
Yeah.
Man. I don't think I have a single deck that, like, consistently can turn 2 without protection. No,
It-
I don't have a one. Don't have a one.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like the perfect storm of different factors coming together. The really low mana cost, the high... No, the low amount of cards needed to go off. It's not as good as some slower combo decks regarding slot efficiency, because you have to run like Narcomoeba, Fate Stitcher to support the Dread Return plan. But honestly, I mean, the deck is still running 20 interaction spells. So it's still got solid cards, even despite running a bunch of weird ones.
Absolutely. Breakfast Hulk is an incredibly fast, incredibly potent, and an excellently brewed deck. So thank you, Sigi, for taking the time to help walk us through how you win, how you get yourself to win by winning faster, and some sample hands so that we can get a feel for how it might play out. Thank you, all of you, for taking the time to watch us, and my beautiful puppy here. And we will see you next time.
Goodbye.